The final countdown. The vast expanse of space lay before them, an ocean of darkness punctuated only by the pinpricks of distant stars and the occasional flicker of shifting ship engines. The hum of the horizon, the flagship of humanity's fleet, echoed through its steel bones, a constant reminder of the enormity of the task ahead. On the bridge, Commander Evelyn Grant stood at the center, her back straight and her eyes focused on the tactical display. The final battle had arrived, and there was no turning back. The war had raged for centuries. The human race, once confined to a single planet in a distant solar system, had risen to dominate the stars. But in their rise, they had encountered the Loranes Federation, a peaceful yet fiercely protective species. At first, humanity had believed that the Federation was weak, easily overpowered. They were wrong. The Loranes were resilient. They fought back with a fury unlike anything humanity had ever seen. What began as a war for resources soon spiraled into something more, a battle for survival on both sides. Now, standing at the helm of the final assault, Evelyn's thoughts wandered back to the beginning. She had been just a cadet when the war broke out, eager to serve her country and prove herself. The fleet was smaller back then, their weapons primitive compared to the devastating technologies the Loranes wielded. But over the years, humanity had adapted, learned, and evolved. They had built ships like the Horizon, a floating fortress capable of withstanding the most powerful weapons the galaxy could throw at them. Yet even this ship, despite its might, couldn't guarantee victory. The Loranes had always been one step ahead, always willing to fight for their homeworld, their culture, and their people. Turning her attention back to the tactical display, Evelyn's heart sank. The fleet was assembled. Hundreds of ships, ranging from cruisers to dreadnoughts, each one brimming with soldiers and technology honed for this very moment. They were positioned in a perfect formation, ready to launch their final assault on Loranes. But as much as they had prepared, there was something hauntingly quiet about this moment. It wasn't just the emptiness of space, it was the weight of everything they were about to do. "Commander, the fleet is ready," said Lieutenant Foster, a young officer at the communication station. His voice was steady, but there was a trace of uncertainty in his eyes. They all felt it, the tension, the anxiety, the dread of the unknown. Evelyn nodded, her gaze fixed on the screen. In the distance, the faint silhouette of Loranes loomed like a distant shadow, a planet that had once been a symbol of peace and prosperity. Now, it was a target, the final target. "We've been preparing for this moment for years," Evelyn said, her voice calm but resolute. "The enemy will be waiting for us, but we have the advantage. They won't know what hit them." "Understood, Commander," Foster replied, tapping on his console as the fleet began to activate their weapon systems. The crew around her moved with practiced precision, each person knowing their role in this well-oiled machine. As they prepared for battle, Evelyn couldn't help but feel the weight of her responsibility. The fate of humanity, of the galaxy itself, rested on her shoulders. Every decision, every command she gave could mean the difference between victory and annihilation. And then there was the matter of the enemy. Over the course of the war, the Loranes Federation had proved themselves to be more than capable opponents. Their advanced technology, once believed to be far beyond human capabilities, had leveled the playing field. What started as a war for resources had become something far more complicated. Humanity's greatest strength, its adaptability, had been tested at every turn. The Loranes had pushed them to their limits, forcing them to rethink everything they knew about warfare, survival, and even themselves. Evelyn's thoughts were interrupted by the sharp voice of Captain Thompson, her second in command. "Commander, we've detected a large gravitational anomaly near the outer rim of Loranes. It's massive. Too massive to be a natural phenomenon." Her heart skipped a beat. "Is it them?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Most likely," Thompson said grimly. "We're picking up an unusual energy signature coming from the anomaly. Whatever it is, it's not like anything we've encountered before." Evelyn's mind raced. The Loranes had always been full of surprises, but this, what new weapon or tactic were they preparing? They couldn't afford any more surprises. Not now. Not with everything they had built up to this point. She glanced at her crew, all of them waiting for her command. "Prepare the fleet," she said, her voice unwavering. "We're going in." As the words left her lips, a low rumble reverberated through the hull of the Horizon. The fleet began to move, their massive ships cutting through space like a single coordinated force. For the first time in her life, Evelyn felt the full weight of command, the burden of leadership, and the sheer scale of the conflict. This wasn't just about strategy or technology. It was about survival. The survival of her crew, her people, and perhaps even the future of the galaxy itself. She turned her attention back to the view screen. Loranes was growing larger by the second, the planet's surface now visible through the void. It was a planet they had once hoped to protect. But now, it was a target, and there was no turning back. The final countdown had begun. Every decision she made from this point forward would shape the future. As the fleet closed in, the tension on the bridge was palpable. Evelyn's mind raced as she thought of the soldiers below decks, the engineers, the scientists, and the countless others who had worked tirelessly to ensure this day would come. She thought of her family, her home, the world she had fought for. She thought of all the lives lost in the conflict on both sides, and the endless sacrifices made to bring them to this point. In the distance, a strange light began to flicker. It was faint at first, almost imperceptible, but it grew brighter with each passing second. A strange energy seemed to emanate from the core of Loranes, and Evelyn's heart sank. Something was wrong. She could feel it deep in her bones. "Status report," she barked, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "We're detecting a massive energy buildup," Foster replied, his voice tight with apprehension. "It's coming from the planet itself. The anomaly, it's getting stronger." "Shields up," Evelyn commanded. "Full power to weapons. All stations, prepare for battle." The final countdown had begun, but this was not just the beginning of a battle. It was the beginning of something much greater, a war that would change everything. Evelyn had no idea what awaited them on the other side of that strange energy signature, but she knew one thing for certain. This was the end of the beginning. Everything that had led to this moment would either be justified or destroyed in the coming conflict. The Horizon surged forward, its engines roaring to life, cutting through the void toward the planet that had once symbolized hope, now a battleground for the future. The fleet followed, ready for the challenge ahead. But as they moved closer, something even more terrifying began to unfold. A glimmer of hope. The massive armada continued its approach toward Loranes, a juggernaut of ships powered by years of technological innovation, relentless training, and the unwavering determination of its human crew. But Commander Evelyn Grant couldn't shake the gnawing sense that something was wrong. As the fleet closed in, the once quiet space around them became filled with static, an eerie silence that hung heavy in the air, punctuated only by the hum of ship engines and the occasional blip on the sensors. On the bridge of the Horizon, Evelyn paced back and forth, her mind racing. There had been a change in the energy signature, something more than just a spike in activity. It was almost as if the planet itself were sending a signal, a warning, perhaps. Her instincts had never steered her wrong, and today was no different. Every bone in her body screamed that they were walking into a trap. "Commander," Lieutenant Foster spoke up, his voice tight with concern. "We're picking up irregularities in the fleet's sensor readings. It's faint, but it's there. The distortion in the fabric of space itself." Evelyn paused, turning sharply to face him. "What kind of distortion?" Foster's brow furrowed as he typed furiously at his console, trying to make sense of the data flooding in. "It's hard to pinpoint, but it's as if something is cloaking itself. I've never seen anything like it. The energy fluctuations don't match any known technologies." "Cloaking," Evelyn repeated, her mind racing. The Loranes had never employed cloaking technology before, It was one of the few advantages humanity had over them. Until now, perhaps. She stepped up to the main view screen, her eyes scanning the distant planet, the homeworld of the Loranis Federation. In the distance, a flickering light grew brighter and brighter, almost as if the planet itself was alive, pulsing with energy. For a brief moment, Evelyn thought she saw a shadow move across the surface of the planet, a movement too large to be natural, too deliberate to be a coincidence. Her heart skipped a beat. Was it the enemy? Were they preparing to strike? "Captain Thompson," Evelyn called out, "give me a full tactical assessment of the situation." Now, the captain, a seasoned officer with a calm demeanor, turned to face her. His face was grim. "We've detected multiple energy sources all around the planet, Commander. Not just on the surface, but deep within the atmosphere. It's almost like the entire planet is shielded by something massive, something that can't be detected through our usual scans." The tension on the bridge thickened. Evelyn's hand clenched into a fist. The Federation had always been clever, but this was something new, something dangerous. "Lieutenant Foster," she said, her voice sharp, "can we get a more precise reading? Something that can break through the distortion." Foster didn't need any further prompting. His fingers flew over the console as he worked to recalibrate the sensors, adjusting for the strange interference. The seconds felt like hours as the crew waited, every eye fixed on the screen. Finally, the words appeared, flashing on the monitor. "Unknown anomaly detected. Massive energy source. Unknown origin." "This is it," Evelyn murmured under her breath. This is what they were hiding all along. Without warning, the massive light from Loranis intensified. A pulse of energy, unlike anything they had ever encountered, shot into space from the planet's surface. The wave of force sent ripples through space itself, distorting time and space in a way that was hard to comprehend. The crew on the bridge staggered as the ship's gravitational systems struggled to adjust to the sudden shift in momentum. "Brace for impact," Evelyn shouted, her voice cutting through the panic. The emergency alarms blared across the ship, and a red emergency light flickered on. The horizon lurched as a shockwave passed over them, its sheer power sending tremors through the ship. It felt as if the entire fleet had been hit by a supernova. Evelyn's hand shot out instinctively to steady herself as the shaking grew more violent. "Shields holding," Captain Thompson called out. "The horizon is intact, but we're going to need a few seconds to stabilize." Foster's voice trembled as he spoke next. "Commander, the fleet is scattering. We've lost several ships already. Damage is severe. We need to regroup or we're going to be wiped out before we even make it to the planet." Evelyn's mind raced. There was no time to waste. They had to regain control of the situation. And fast. If the horizon went down, there was no telling how many lives would be lost in the chaos. They had trained for this. They had prepared for the worst. But nothing had ever prepared them for this level of destruction. "Redirect all power to forward shields," Evelyn ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around her. "And get the fleet back into formation, now. We're not retreating. We're moving forward." Thompson nodded, giving the necessary commands to the communications team. The Horizon's engines roared to life, steadying itself, its shields bracing against the next wave of the mysterious energy. Outside the ship's windows, the other vessels in the fleet slowly adjusted, regrouping despite the damage they had sustained. But just as Evelyn thought they had regained control, the view screen suddenly flashed, displaying a new, unexpected image. The flickering light from the planet. Was it growing? "What is that?" Foster exclaimed, pointing at the display. A massive shape was emerging from the heart of the planet. A ship unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Its design was unlike anything the Loranis had ever used, yet it was unmistakably alien. It was enormous, bigger than the horizon, perhaps even bigger than the entire fleet combined. Its surface was shimmering with energy, a massive shield of light enveloping its form, almost as if it were radiating pure energy. The voice of Captain Thompson trembled as he spoke. "Commander, I think this is it. The true weapon." Evelyn's mind was spinning. This ship, whatever it was, could turn the tide of the entire war. But humanity wasn't ready for this. No one had predicted an adversary like this. How could they have? Then, as if on cue, the massive vessel unleashed its weapon. A beam of pure energy, brighter than the sun, shot from its core, splitting the space between the planet and the fleet with terrifying speed. The beam cut through space, slamming into one of the lead ships in the fleet, obliterating it in a flash of blinding light. "No," Evelyn shouted, horrified by the sight. She could see the wreckage of the ship, now nothing more than scattered debris. A ship, the pride of humanity, reduced to nothing in the blink of an eye. She turned to her crew, her face hardening. "We need to stop that ship. Now." But deep down, Evelyn knew that the battle they were about to face wasn't just about defeating an enemy. It was about survival itself. They were up against something far beyond their wildest expectations, something humanity had never encountered before. And she had to find a way to turn the tables before it was too late. As the horizon and the remaining ships of the fleet moved into position, Evelyn braced herself for what lay ahead. The battle for Loranes was only just beginning, but already it felt as if the end of the war, and possibly the end of humanity itself, was hanging in the balance. Into the heart of darkness. The eerie hum of the horizon's engines was the only sound that filled the command bridge, but the air was thick with tension. Commander Evelyn Grant stood at the forefront, her sharp eyes never leaving the view screen. What had started as an optimistic, decisive mission had rapidly descended into chaos. The massive energy beam from the mysterious ship had torn apart one of humanity's best and brightest ships, and now, with the weight of the entire fleet's survival on her shoulders, Evelyn knew the next few minutes could change the course of history forever. "We can't fight it head-on," Captain Thompson said, his voice edged with uncertainty. He was staring at the sensor readings, trying to make sense of the data pouring in from the remaining fleet. "The weapon is too powerful, Commander. We're barely holding it together, and the rest of the fleet. They won't last long under that kind of fire." Evelyn's thoughts raced. Their strategy had always been straightforward: overwhelm the enemy with sheer numbers and firepower. But this was a whole new ballgame. The Horizon's shields had been tested by the energy blast, but they'd survived, just barely. However, the rest of the fleet, scattered and disoriented, was being torn apart. Ships that had once been mighty were now helpless, floating debris in the vastness of space. "We need to change the tactics," Evelyn said, her voice calm but resolute. She turned to face her crew, looking each one of them in the eye. "We can't defeat this enemy with brute force alone. It's time we get creative. Time for us to use their advantage against them." "How do you propose we do that, Commander?" asked Lieutenant Foster, his voice tight with worry. "That ship's firepower is beyond anything we've ever encountered. It's like it's made of pure energy." Evelyn's mind was spinning, but amidst the chaos, an idea began to take shape. She recalled a briefing from months ago, back when the scientists had theorized about the possible existence of energy-based weapons, while humanity had always focused on physical matter. Missiles, energy beams, and lasers. These alien beings seemed to harness the very fabric of energy itself. That ship, with its glowing aura, was the embodiment of that theory, and Evelyn realized it was both a strength and a weakness. "We've been thinking about this all wrong," she said, her voice gaining strength with each word. "We need to strike at the core of that ship, take out its power source. If they're using pure energy, that energy has to come from somewhere. We find the core and destroy it. We destroy the weapon." The bridge fell silent as her crew absorbed the weight of her words. They were facing something unprecedented, a weapon so powerful it could erase entire fleets. But if they could just get close enough, if they could disrupt the energy, it might give them the edge they needed. "Prepare for an energy surge," Foster called out suddenly, his fingers flying across the console as alarms blared. They're powering up again. That thing's getting ready to fire. Evelyn's eyes snapped to the view screen. The alien ship, still radiating with raw energy, began to charge its weapons. The beam was already building, a searing line of light forming at its core. Evelyn's heart pounded in her chest. This was it. If they didn't act now, they would be annihilated. Helm, prepare for evasive maneuvers. Evelyn barked. Full speed ahead, maximum shields. Foster, target their rear engines. That's our entry point. We can't afford to waste time trying to fight them head-on. The crew sprang into action. The Horizon surged forward, its massive engines pushing the ship into the heart of the battlefield. The alien ship loomed ahead, its ominous glow casting an eerie light on the surroundings. Evelyn could feel the ship trembling as the tension built to a breaking point. "Commander, we've got a problem," Captain Thompson said, his voice rising in urgency. "The fleet. It's falling apart. Most of our ships have been disabled. The remaining ones are in disarray. We're on our own out here." Evelyn clenched her fists, fighting the sense of helplessness that threatened to engulf her. Her heart was heavy, but she couldn't afford to show weakness. The Horizon was humanity's last hope, and she was not about to let it fall without a fight. She glanced at the view screen again, and a thought struck her. "We need to do more than just disable them," she said, her voice fierce. "We need to send a message. This is humanity's home. We've fought for this. We've earned our place in this galaxy, and we'll be damned if we let some alien force erase it all. This is our fight." The words hung in the air, a rallying cry for the crew that had stood by her side through the darkest hours of this war. But it was clear, this was more than just a battle for survival. It was a battle for the future of humanity. If they couldn't stop this enemy, there would be no future. "Understood," Captain Thompson replied, his voice steady now. "We're ready, Commander." "Then let's make it count," Evelyn said. "Target the rear engines. I want everything we have pointed in that direction. All weapons, all power. We're going to hit them where it hurts." As the Horizon closed the distance between itself and the massive alien ship, the battle for the future of the galaxy was about to unfold in a way no one had ever imagined. A sudden shudder ran through the ship as the first blast from the alien ship hit the fleet. Evelyn's eyes widened. The beam had pierced through one of the cruisers in a matter of seconds, and it was now nothing but molten metal and vapor in the vacuum of space. "Shields holding," Foster reported, his voice strained but controlled. The ship trembled again as they passed the threshold of the alien ship's firing range, and the glow from the enemy weapon flared brighter. "Now," Evelyn ordered. With a coordinated blast, the Horizon fired everything they had: missiles, lasers, and all available energy. The barrage struck the alien ship's rear engines, sending ripples of energy cascading across its surface. For a moment, nothing happened, and then the enemy ship's power source flickered, just for an instant before stabilizing. The ship's weapon fired again, but this time it wasn't as fast, nor as powerful. Evelyn's heart soared. The weakness was there. This was their chance. "Get us in closer," she shouted. "We've got them on the ropes. This is our only shot." The Horizon barreled toward the enemy vessel, its hull groaning under the strain. Behind them, the remains of the fleet continued to scatter, trying to survive against the overwhelming power of the alien force. But it was the Horizon that carried the hope of humanity now, and Evelyn would stop at nothing to see this through. As they closed in on the massive enemy ship, the tension in the air became almost unbearable. The fate of the galaxy was in their hands, and it was a race against time. The enemy had power, had weaponry, had technology beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of, but they had something humanity did not: heart, determination, a fierce will to survive. "We're almost there," Evelyn said, her voice a whisper of resolve. "Let's finish this." And with that, the Horizon hurtled forward, its crew united in their final stand, determined to make their mark on history, no matter the cost. The battle for the future had begun. The breach. The tension on the bridge of the horizon was palpable, the air thick with the weight of impending doom. Commander Evelyn Grant's heart pounded in her chest as her ship, battered but determined, surged closer to the colossal alien vessel. The rear engines of the enemy ship had been temporarily disabled by their barrage, but Evelyn knew that they couldn't afford to let up. This was a fragile opening, one that could close in an instant. "Helm, bring us in line with their hull. Full power to thrusters," Evelyn ordered, her voice sharp with command. The horizon groaned as its thrusters burned hot, pushing the massive ship closer toward the target. The distant flashes of battle from the remaining fleet seemed to fade away as the enemy ship loomed larger, its jagged alien surface shimmering with an almost unnatural glow. The pulse of energy coursing through its core was visible now, a pulsating aura of power that seemed to vibrate with each passing second, as if the ship itself was alive. "Shields are holding, but we've sustained more damage to the starboard side," Captain Thompson called out. "Hull integrity at 70%, Commander." Evelyn's jaw tightened. They had been lucky so far, but the enemy ship was no longer just a threat. It was a force of nature. It was almost as if it were feeding off the chaos around it. If they didn't strike soon, it would be too late. "Lieutenant Foster, can we get a better raid on their internal systems? I need to know if we can disable their core." Foster's fingers moved furiously across the console, the glow of his screen casting light over his tense face. His voice was strained when he responded. "I'm getting interference, Commander. Their energy shields are fluctuating. But the core, there's something odd about it. The readings don't match anything we've seen before. It's as if they're drawing power from an entirely different dimension." Evelyn felt a cold chill run down her spine. Power from another dimension. The implications were staggering, but there was no time to dwell on the unknown. They had to push forward. The fleet's firepower had been ineffective so far, and this was their only chance to strike at the heart of the beast. "All weapons, focus on that weak spot," she commanded, her voice hard and steady. "We only have one shot at this." The horizon shuddered as the weapon systems powered up. The cannons hummed with energy, ready to fire. On the bridge, every crew member was tense, waiting for Evelyn's signal. They had no more backup. There were no more reinforcements. This was it. "Firing," Foster announced. A barrage of energy tore through space, slamming into the rear of the alien ship with a force that made the horizon rock back on its heels. For a moment, there was nothing but a blinding flash of light. When the glow began to fade, Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. The shields had absorbed much of the blast, but there was a visible crack in the enemy's outer hull. It was a vulnerable spot, a fracture in their defenses that they could exploit. "Direct hit, Commander," Captain Thompson said, his voice laced with awe. "The breach is wider. We've got an opening." But it wasn't enough. The alien vessel was far too resilient, and as the damage spread across its hull, the ship's pulse began to intensify. The energy signature spiked, and Evelyn's instincts screamed at her to take action before it was too late. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," Evelyn shouted, gripping the armrest of her chair. "Their shields are recalibrating. We need to strike now before they're back at full strength." The horizon lurched forward again, weaving through the wreckage of the scattered fleet. The alien ship, despite its overwhelming power, had been slowed, but not stopped. Its enormous size made it a difficult target, and Evelyn knew they couldn't keep dancing around it forever. As the horizon flew ever closer to the breach, Lieutenant Foster shouted, "Commander, I'm detecting a massive surge in their core. They're about to fire again. Brace for impact." Evelyn barked, her voice tight with urgency. She could see it now, the swirling mass of energy building at the heart of the alien ship. The beam was gathering momentum, charging up for another devastating attack. And this time, there would be no surviving the blast if they didn't act. The horizon's engines roared to life, pushing the ship forward at maximum speed. But as they neared the breach, Evelyn's eyes locked onto a new development, a smaller, sleeker vessel detaching from the side of the enemy ship. "What the hell is that?" she murmured, her gaze fixed on the alien craft as it glided toward them. Unlike the massive alien ship, this one was fast, agile, designed for close combat. The smaller craft deployed several energy projectiles, each one streaking toward the horizon. A deafening impact sounded as one of the projectiles collided with their shields. The horizon rocked violently, but the shields held, barely. "Shields at 50%. The energy projectiles are too concentrated," Foster cried out. "We need to get out of here, Commander." But Evelyn wouldn't allow retreat. This was it. This was humanity's final stand. They could not run now. The entire fleet was either gone or incapacitated. They were alone, and Evelyn knew they had to take this chance while they still had it. "Take us in closer," Evelyn shouted. "We're going for the breach." With a skillful hand, the helm officer adjusted course, guiding the horizon into the gap in the enemy ship's hull. The massive ship was almost upon them now, and the closer they got, the more Evelyn could feel the energy pulsing from its core, stronger, more powerful than ever before. But as they neared the breach, something unexpected happened. The smaller alien craft that had attacked them before returned, faster now, circling the horizon. It was as if the aliens had anticipated this move. There were no surprises left. "I've got something," Lieutenant Foster said suddenly. "There's an energy spike coming from the inside of that breach. It's a trap. They've set a trap inside the ship." Evelyn's mind raced. They had fallen right into it. The alien ship was using its breach to lure them in, and once they got too close, the trap would spring. It was a move so precise, so calculated, that it nearly stopped Evelyn's heart. "Abort," she screamed. "Pull us out. Now." But it was too late. Before the horizon could reverse course, a wave of energy exploded outward from the breach. The ship's entire structure seemed to groan under the strain as the shockwave collided with them. The horizon was sent reeling, its shields flickering dangerously as the hull creaked and groaned in protest. "Impact," Captain Thompson shouted, gripping the console. "We're hit hard. Hull integrity at 30%. Systems failing across the board." "Status on the fleet," Evelyn demanded, her eyes scanning the display. The remaining ships were scattered and disabled, their wreckage a testament to the enemy's overwhelming strength. "Commander, we're on our own," Foster reported, his voice tight with anxiety. "The fleet's lost. We are humanity's last hope." Evelyn swallowed hard. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders, but there was no room for fear. Not now. She looked at her crew, each one of them standing by her side, ready to fight to the end. "We're not done yet," Evelyn said, her voice steel. "We've broken through their defenses once. We can do it again. Keep pushing forward. We breach the heart of this ship, and we end it. Now." As the horizon powered through the chaos, heading deeper into the heart of the alien ship, Evelyn knew that this final push would either be their triumph or their end. But whatever happened, she had no intention of surrendering. The fate of humanity rested on her shoulders.